In this lesson, we're going to do a quick review of the animal phyla we talked about in Zoology Unit 1. So this is going to be really quick. I'm not going to go through things in a lot of detail, so if you have questions, refer to the additional readings that will be below this teacher video, or email me with questions you have. So the first phylum we talked about was phylum Porifera, which are sponges. They are filter feeders. They have choanocytes, which are the special flagellated cell to move water through the sponge to gather food particles. They respirate, circulate, and excrete by diffusion. They don't move as adults, but they move as a larva. They don't have any nerves, and they can reproduce asexually by budding or sexually by internal fertilization. They are hermaphrodites, meaning an organism produces both egg and sperm. Now for phylum Cnidaria, these are sea anemones, corals, jellyfish, and hydras. They feed using their tentacles. Their tentacles have the cnidocytes which capture their prey. They are carnivores, and they do have a gastrovascular cavity. They have one opening, which is called a mouth, where food enters and any waste exits. They respirate, circulate, and excrete by diffusion because they're so thin. They do move. They do have muscles. Medusiforms are mobile. Polypiforms are usually sessile. And they do have nerves. They have nerve nets, and they do have some specialized parts, statocysts and ocelli, which can detect light and help with balance. They reproduce asexually by budding, and they reproduce sexually as well, and usually males and females are separate. There are a few developments in cnidarians that are important that make them more advanced than poriferans. They have muscles, they have nerves, they have radial symmetry, and they have tissues. Classes to know from phylum Cnidaria are Hydrozoa, Scyphozoa, and Anthozoa. Here's a Hydrozoa, a hydra. Scyphozoa are jellyfish, which are seen in the background here, and then corals and sea anemones are in class Anthozoa. So now on to phylum Platyhelminthes, or flatworms. This one is particularly important to pay attention to, and I'm going to slow down a little bit here, because in this unit, in Zoology 2, we're going to be talking about roundworms and segmented worms, and I want to be able to compare them with flatworms. So you especially need to know this flatworm information, and that's why you're going to be taking notes here now on the side for phylum Platyhelminthes, so you have the knowledge to compare them with the other worm phyla that we'll talk about. So flatworms, there are both free-living and parasitic examples. Free-living and flukes have a pharynx and a more developed gastrovascular cavity, and tapeworms don't have any digestive system at all. But it is important to note that they do have a pharynx and they have a gastrovascular cavity. They respirate and circulate by diffusion, but with excretion they have flame cells, and the flame cells remove waste from their bodily fluids and dispel it outside of the body. They do have muscles, and they have cilia on their bottom surfaces to help them move. Now this is important to know. They do have nerves, and they have a neural ganglion in the head region. They do have some organs that help them sense. They have eye spots and auricles for sight and touch. They do reproduce. Some reproduce by fission asexually, but for the most part they are hermaphrodites, where an animal has both male and female parts, and that's their sexual reproduction. So important developments of flatworms: they have a neural ganglion and cephalization. That's a concentration of nerves and sense organs in the head. They have a gastrovascular system, but it still only has one opening. That mouth is both a mouth and an anus. They have flame cells for excretion, bilateral symmetry, and they do have organs and organ systems. Classes to be aware of: Turbellaria, Trematoda, and Cestota. There's a Trematoda. Turbellaria was in the background, and there's a tapeworm, Cestota. So that's our review, and now you can take the quiz and move on to phylum Nematoda.